Hello, this is Tom from the Dreamcast Junkyard, and thank you for joining me for another riveting trip through the pages of Dreamcast Magazine. This time we're looking at Dreamcast Magazine Issue 3. This one came out on the 23rd of November 1999. A quick look at the cover tells you that Shenmue features quite heavily, and this was really the first time that the magazine did any kind of feature on Shenmue. It was briefly mentioned in previous issues, you know, as I say, very briefly, but nothing on the scale of this feature that's in this magazine. Other things on the cover are Shadow Man, again, Soul Calibur, Ferrari, F355 Challenge. And one of the best things about this particular issue of Dreamcast Magazine is that it does have some quite big and in-depth features on games that never actually released. So we'll get to those in a minute, but first things first, again, obviously the cover shows Shenmue, Ryo Hazuki there, looking very stern. That's probably one of the first times the vast majority of people who owned a Dreamcast or had bought one actually saw that game. So it's very exciting. And as you'd expect, the opening gambit from the editor, or the managing editor, Nick Roberts, is all about Shenmue and how amazing it was and all this kind of thing. The usual format remains from the other two issues. I will say that if you want to see my previous videos on issues 1 and 2, I'll put a link to issue 2 here, so you can click on that. But it remains the same really throughout all of the issues, the contents page. Moving on. Okay, so this is just a little bit about the European launch. There was a big event in London with Chris Eubank and Nigel Benn, who were two boxers from the era, who were, you know, big rivals, but they came together to do a bit of promotional work for the Dreamcast. And this was just about because this magazine actually came out in November, the Dreamcast was already out by then, whereas the other two issues were a little bit before the Dreamcast actually officially launched. So this is the first time that it was shown, you know, what impact the Dreamcast had had. So over here in this little box out, it says here that over 185,000 Dreamcasts have been sold across Europe and £52 million of retail sales, 350,000 software units sold, 280,000 peripherals sold, 145,000 VMU sold, and 90,000 extra controllers sold. So that's a nice little bit of stat information there. Newscast. This again goes through little snippets of information about what's going on in the US and Japan. So this is a little bit about the Hello Kitty Pink Dreamcast there, and also about Typing of the Dead. And then this box out here at the bottom is a little article about Japanese Dreamcast owners having the option to use a cable modem. Whether or not that actually did come out, I'm not entirely sure. I'm pretty sure it didn't. Okay, over here, there's more information, or more news about different games coming out. We've got Soul Reaver here. Indiana Jones was a game that was muted for the Dreamcast. PC to DC, that's another feature that I've featured in other videos on this magazine, where they had a look at different Dreamcast games that were potentially coming, having been ported from the PC. So that one's Grand Theft Auto 2, which we know came, and also Player Manager Online, which didn't. Bit here about different peripherals. The arcade, it looks horrendous. It's silver, and you know, some of the unofficial pads just look terrible. I mean, look at that. It looks like you know, something Batman would ride around in. And the Astro pads there at the top. Advert there for Pen. So this is the cover story, Shenmue, and you know, I can remember the first time I saw it and I was blown away by it. It still looks great now, to be honest. For a game that came out in 2000, it still looks amazing. But for a lot of people, this would have been the first time they'd seen this, and to have visuals of this quality in real time was, you know, it was a first. It's a first. A little bit there about the QuickTime events and the different characters you'll meet in the game. There's Mr. Yukawa's face there. Yeah, and just a little bit about the free battle mode. Moving on, 355 challenge. This looks like it may be taken from the arcade machine because of the way the pictures are, just the way the pictures look like they've been taken from a CRT monitor. And yeah, just the end of the feature there. Okay, this section is all about the games that are reviewed and previewed in the issue. So, in development, Resident Evil 2. The thing about Resident Evil 2 on the Dreamcast is that it really is just a port of the... I'm not sure if it's a port of the PC version or the N64 version, but it's not amazing. It doesn't really make any extra use of the hardware. It's high res, but that's about it. There's a little box out there about coming soon called Veronica. There's more here about Resident Evil 2. It was 95% complete at this point, due in December. Vigilante 8, Second Offense. Not one of my favourite games for the Dreamcast, I must admit. I did like the N64 version just because it was, something I'd never played before, even though it obviously came out first on the PS1 and the PC. But when I played it on the N64, I really enjoyed it. But Vigilante 8, Second Offense, it's just because it's a futuristic setting, I'm not too keen on it. So the percentage complete was 90%. 7 Mansions. Now I know this game did come out in the Japanese market. It never came out in the US or PAL territories, and it's a bit disappointing really because it looks like it could have been quite good. I believe you can still buy it if you want to buy the Japanese version, but like things like D probably doesn't, or D2 even, it probably doesn't make a lot of sense if you can't speak or understand Japanese. So it's not one that I'll be looking at in depth anytime soon. Now, I did say that there were a lot of games in this magazine that never came out. This is one of them. This is Midnight GT, and a game that I was really looking forward to back in the day. Street racing game. Looks very similar to, well, it doesn't look similar to, but it looks like a nice alternative to things like Metropolis Street Racer and Sega GT. And by the name, I'm guessing, or I've read the article. All the games take place at night, hence the name Midnight GT. But it looks like a really promising racer from Rage that just disappeared off radar. According to this world down here, it was 80% complete at the time of this, so there must still exist a version of this game somewhere. But as yet, I'm yet to actually find a playable version of it. So if anyone knows anything, then please let us know. Another game that never came out. This one is Felony Pursuit. I did mention this in the last video because there was a little box out in the forecast section at the back of the magazine of issue 2, and this is just a bigger version really of that. Gives a few more details about the game. It's going to be like a pseudo open world racer, and again looks quite promising, but one that never appeared. These shots look they look suspiciously like PC shots and mock-ups as well. The draw distance doesn't look amazing either. There's like a lot of fogging in the distance, but still, it would have been nice to have another game with an open world setting. Okay, reviews. Shadow Man, again, if you've seen my other videos, you'll note that there's a lot of hype and advertising for Shadow Man at the time. It was a very big game on the N64, and I think they were just trying to ride on the coattails of that game when it came to the Dreamcast. I mean, it's a nice conversion. It looks a lot better than the N64 and the PlayStation versions, but it's just not that much fun. It's quite boring, to be honest, and it's just a slog. It's just a real slog. It's such a long game. Not I'm complaining about a game having longevity. It's just very dull. Shadow Man, that got 90%. South Park Chef's Luv Shack. Decent party game, gets a bit dull in one player. That got 76%. F1 World Grand Prix. This is just a continuation of the N64 series. And that got 89%. This is interesting. This is an advert. It's not necessarily something to do with the Dreamcast, but it's an advert for Telegames, who were the distributor for the Jaguar in the UK, or were one of them anyway. And here it says you can have a Jaguar and a Jaguar CD and all these games and extra joypads and blah 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 for 125 quid. Now that is really good, especially nowadays when Jaguar CDs go for like £200 plus on their own. To sort of point that out, it's interesting to me anyway. Sega Bass Fishing. I'm not a big fan of this game, to be honest. It's novel with the reel and everything, but I'm not really a big fan of fishing, to be honest. That got 80%. Aero Wings, one of the first games I played on the Dreamcast when I first got mine. I got it from Blockbuster Video. I thought it looked pretty, but it was quite boring. 68%. Revolt, another N64 like revamp, and it looks quite nice. Has a few extra tracks. It's got a track editor and things like that. It's all right. It's 86%. Mortal Kombat Gold, which is the Dreamcast version of Mortal Kombat 4, which I believe is the first 3D Mortal Kombat in the series. That got 77%. It's quite fun. If you play it now, compare it to something like Soul Calibur, it's really like janky, but it's good fun. There's fun to be had with it, basically, is what I'm trying to say. Soul Fighter game I don't really like at all, to be honest. It's a 3D roaming beat 'em up with a terrible camera and like slow motion animation that just looks horrendous. But the overall aesthetic design of it is quite impressive. I got 83%, and then this this competition here is run in in tandem with the Soul Fighter game, but it's actually for a rest at a health club, like a break. The most random prize I can imagine. Maybe it's because it's got the word soul in the title of the game, I don't know. Hence Rest Your Soul, but a bit of an odd one. Jimmy White's 2, Cueball, and I think this is a PAL only release. So if you're watching this in the US and you've never heard of Jimmy White, he's a snooker player. And Jimmy White's Cueball was a PC port of a game with the same name, but it wasn't just snooker, it had like pool or billiards, it had darts, drafts, a drop zone arcade machine where you could kind of walk around in this 3D like bar room, and also a one-arm bandit where you could just pretend money in and pull the thing down and then just watch it spin. There's not really much aim to it. It did only get 59%. I think that's a bit harsh, to be honest, because it does play a good game of pool. Snow Surfers. This one is Cool Borders Burn in other territories. That got 62%. Again, a bit harsh. It's not an amazing game, but it's it's all right. It's passable. Tokyo Highway Challenge. This is actually one of the very first games I played on the Dreamcast when it was a Japanese-only system. My friend had one, and he had this game, and I remember being completely blown away by the visuals, and it still looks good today, to be honest. Right, where was I? My battery ran out on my camera, so I've had to sort of start again from where I left off. But yeah, Tokyo Highway Challenge, that's here, 73%. Moving on, Dynamite Cop, a game that is now like lauded as a really good, if a little camp, 3D beat 'em up. The actual sequel to Die Hard Arcade is I think it's a really good game. It's really fun in multiplayer. Only got 69% here though. And Racing Simulation Monaco Grand Prix, a game again I'm not too keen on. It was a game that I played quite early on in the Dreamcast's life and thought it was really good, and a lot better than the N64 version, light years ahead graphically. But gameplay wise not the best, and obviously it didn't have the official Formula 1 license either. Not that means that it's not a decent game, but World Grand Prix is a far superior game in my opinion. I've got 83%, which is a fair score, I think. NFL Blitz 2000. Now, I'm not a fan of American football or NFL. I just don't get it at all. I don't know. I just don't think it's that good a game. That's just my opinion. Millions of other people disagree with me, obviously. NFL Blitz, though, is kind of an arcadey take on NFL, and I actually find it quite fun. So, it's easy. It's for a thick English person like me to understand, and so that got 89%. WWF Attitude is just terrible, and that got 41%, and rightly so. Now, in the interact section is where the cheats and the the letters page and stuff all come in. So here we've got the mailbox, and the high score section here makes a return in issue 3. Competition to win a Dreamcast and a DVD player. Do you remember when DVD players looked like that, when they were just massive, great, huge, like hulking things? Reader reviews. We've got Sega Rally 2, which gets 98%. A bit over the top maybe. Mortal Kombat Gold gets 42, Power Stone 95, and House of the Dead 2 gets 90. So those are the reader reviews for issue 3. Dreamcast Solutions, Hydro Thunder, Sega Bass Fishing, Buggy Heat, Speed Devils, and Pen all get cheats. Oh, and incoming as well down here. And then we've got a Soul Calibur Solutions section. Just giving you all the, you know, the button commands for the different moves of the different characters. Big advert spread there for gameplay.com. And then this is the forecast section, which for me is always the best section because it always has games in that we never saw. So we've got here Jambo Safari, which was an arcade game, never came to the Dreamcast. Zombie Revenge did, obviously. Drones, which was a really early, like, not esports, but it was like Tron style game, but that never came. I think it did come out on the PC as something else a few years later, but it wasn't in the original form that it was in for the Dreamcast. Star Wars Episode 1 Racer, we got that. Star Trek New World is an interesting one. I don't know what happened to that. According to this, it was 60% complete, and it looks like a real-time strategy game according to this article here, but never came to the Dreamcast. Castlevania Resurrection, the infamous Castlevania Resurrection. You only ever see these same, there's about 5 or 6 different screenshots that they always show in these magazines, and it's always the same ones. Baldur's Gate was planned for the Dreamcast. According to this, it was 50% complete, but we never saw it. Test Drive 6 did come out in the US, but never came out in the UK for whatever reason. I understand that it's not a very good game, so it's not really a lot to. We're not really missing out on much, but it would have been nice to have that as an extra something to play on. Croc 2. Croc 2 never came out for the Dreamcast, but according to this, it was 55% complete. By all accounts, it's not that good anyway, so we're not really missing much. Jump Runner and Undercover, 2 games that are interesting, but and they are covered in other magazines I own, but again, never came out. Slave Zero, Street Fighter W Impact, and Star Gladiator 2. Wild Metal Country, Roadsters, which is one of the worst games on the Dreamcast in my opinion, and then Berserk, Guts Rage, which is really cool if you like long cutscenes. And then the directory, in this particular issue of the magazine, the directory is not that expansive because the Dreamcast had only been out for like a month at the time this came out, so there's only, doing some maths here, 15, 18 games here listed on the directory. So it's not a massive amount that, thus far, but as we know, more to come in the future. And then on the last page, it's just a look at what's coming in the next issue, which would be on sale on the 4th of December. Sorry, issue 4 on sale 23rd of December 1999. And that would be looking at Evolution, Psychic Force, Zombie Revenge, Resident Evil 2, Vigilante 8, Sega Worldwide Soccer 2000, and Street Fighter Alpha. And there we have it, and that's the back page, another advert there for Ubisoft games, Speed Devils, Monaco Racing Grand Prix, and Suzuki All-Star Extreme Racing. So yeah, thanks very much for watching. That is issue 3 of Dreamcast Magazine. My camera is trying to focus in on Ryo Hazuki's face. But yeah, thanks very much for watching. Cheers.